Welcome, dear friends. Why war? War is one of humanity's oldest companions. It walks beside us like a shadow. Even when we dream of peace. Why do nations fight? Why do neighbors turn against each other? Why does the human heart sometimes choose destruction instead of harmony? This narration is not only about battles and soldiers, it is about people, mothers, fathers, children, whose lives are changed forever. It is about lessons we forget and lessons we must remember. When we ask why war, we are not asking only about history. We are asking about ourselves. We are asking whether humanity can rise above its instincts, whether wisdom can overcome violence, and whether love can be stronger than hate. Cain and Abel. Two brothers, born of the same family, divided by jealousy. Cain's anger led to the first recorded act of violence. This story reminds us that war begins not with armies, but with the human heart. It shows us that conflict is not only about land or power, it is about emotions that grow unchecked. When jealousy, pride, or fear are allowed to rule, violence follows. The lesson is simple but eternal. Peace begins in the heart, and so does war. The Peloponnesian War. In ancient Greece, Athens and Sparta fought for power. The war lasted nearly 30 years, leaving cities ruined and people broken. The historian Thucydides wrote, "War is a violent teacher." His words echo across centuries. The Peloponnesian War teaches us that even advanced societies, rich in culture and philosophy, can destroy themselves. When rivalry becomes stronger than cooperation, it reminds us that wisdom without compassion is fragile, and that civilization can collapse. When pride blinds leaders to the suffering of their people. Napoleon's ambition. Napoleon dreamed of ruling Europe. His wars brought glory to France, but also endless suffering. Millions died, and his empire collapsed. His story shows how ambition can blind leaders to the pain of ordinary people. Napoleon's downfall teaches us that power gained through violence is temporary, and that the cost of conquest is always greater than the reward. His soldiers marched through snow and hunger, and his empire crumbled because it was built on domination instead of cooperation. The two villages. Imagine two villages by a river. One grows wheat, the other raises cattle. Instead of trading, they fight for control of the river. In the end, both villages lose. Fields burned, cattle stolen, children hungry. This parable shows how war wastes what could have been shared. It reminds us that resources are meant to be exchanged, not destroyed. The river could have been a bridge, but it became a battlefield. The lesson is clear. When greed replaces generosity, everyone suffers. The human face of war. World War I, the Christmas truce. In 1914, soldiers in trenches stopped fighting for one night. They sang carols, shared food, and played football. For a brief moment, humanity overcame hatred. This truce shows us that even in the darkest times, the human spirit longs for peace. It reminds us that soldiers are not machines. They are fathers, brothers, sons, and friends. They too dream of laughter, of music, of home. The Christmas truce is a symbol of what could be if humanity chose compassion instead of violence. World War II, Hiroshima. One bomb destroyed a city. Thousands of lives ended in seconds. Survivors carried scars forever. Hiroshima teaches us that war can reach beyond imagination, beyond mercy. It shows us that technology without wisdom is dangerous, and that human hands can create destruction greater than natural disaster itself. The shadows burned into stone remind us that war leaves marks not only on bodies, but on the soul of humanity. Hiroshima is a warning. If we do not choose peace, we may destroy ourselves completely. Voices of wisdom. Albert Einstein and Sigmund Freud. In 1932, Albert Einstein wrote to Sigmund Freud asking, "Is there any way of delivering mankind from the menace of war?" Einstein, a scientist who understood the power of human invention, feared that invention without wisdom would lead to destruction. Freud replied that war comes from human instincts, our drive for aggression. Yet he also said that culture, law, and education can restrain these instincts. Together, their letters remind us that war is not only about weapons. It is about psychology, about the human spirit, and about whether wisdom can overcome violence. Their exchange is timeless. Science and philosophy joining hands to ask whether humanity can rise above its own nature. Martin Luther King. He said, "Wars are poor chisels for carving peaceful tomorrows." His voice reminds us that courage is not only on battlefields, but in peaceful resistance. King's words show us that true strength is not in destroying enemies, but in transforming them into friends. His dream was not only for civil rights, but for a world where justice replaces violence. His message is clear. Peace is not passive, it is active, brave, and demanding. Civil wars in Africa. From Rwanda to South Africa, wars have torn communities apart, yet survivors tell stories of rebuilding schools, planting trees, and singing together. Even after war, life insists on returning. These stories remind us that peace is not only possible, it is necessary. They show us that even after the deepest wounds, healing can begin. The resilience of survivors is proof that humanity is stronger than violence, and that hope can rise from ashes. The broken drum. In one village, a drum was used to call warriors. One day, a child broke it. The elders were angry, but the child said, "Now the drum cannot call us to fight. It can only remind us to dance." This story teaches us that sometimes peace begins with a simple act of courage. The broken drum became a symbol of transformation, from war to joy, from destruction to celebration. It reminds us that peace is not only about treaties, it is about changing the symbols of our lives, turning weapons into instruments of harmony. War is not only about nations, it is about choices. Every conflict begins with a decision, to fight or to forgive. History shows us the pain of war, but also the beauty of peace. We must ask ourselves, why war? And then answer with courage, no more war. Let our voices be stronger than weapons. Let our stories be bridges, not walls. Let us remember that peace is not weakness. It is the greatest strength of all. And beyond human capacity, there is a hope that whispers to us, a world where children grow without fear, where the sky is free of bombs, and where humanity finally learns to live as one family. This hope is greater than politics, greater than armies, greater than human pride. It is the hope of a peaceful world, carried by the dreams of our children, and guided by a power beyond ourselves.